Hey everybody, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and scooterwest.com. So today I'm going to show you how to change the air filter on your Vespa GT or GTS or GTV model scooter. I'm going to do it on the most difficult version of the GTS, which is the 2020 and newer HPE scooter. There's a little bit more work to get the side skirts off that are on the scooter. And if you're going to replace the filter, they're very inexpensive. I just recommend going with the original Piaggio Premium air filter. Nice thing about it, it's already pre-oiled. These are foam element. If it's 8 or 10 years old, it's definitely past its prime. It's probably going to start deteriorating and falling apart in your engine, which is not a good thing. If you want a less expensive filter, we do have those available also at scooterwest.com. They do not come pre-oiled, but the premium filters do. Part number for pretty much all the GT range of scooters, also the MP3 250, is 831997-0P, and that's for premium, and it's already a pre-oiled filter. If you're looking for a higher performance, freer flowing air filter, we do have the Melosi filters, but if you're looking for the best filtering, the OEM one is the way to go. So let's get right to it. We'll do some preparation to the scooter in order to get access to the air box before we can change out this air filter. So before you start on changing out the air filter, it's always best to be set up for success and have the correct tools to do the job. So I'll go over some of the tools I'm going to use in this video. The one specialty tool is this Easy Red pretty much shallow ratchet, and it's got swivel heads on it. Works really good. I have several sets of these in the service department and all the different toolboxes. We have a number 2 insert bit, a little short one. I have a 8mm socket that also works with this, or any type of ratchet. We're going to use a 10mm combination wrench. You need a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, just standard whatever 6-inch length. A T25 and a T30 Torx driver, and of course the knife's always handy to have. So let's get right to it. So we have the scooter on the center stand, this new 2021 GTS, and we're going to need to access the left side of the scooter. So this is your belt cover, and above the belt cover is the air box, which houses the air filter. It's a specially designed box that has special characteristics to muffle the air noise and also works with the full intake system. It's very highly engineered. So a lot of times people think about taking this off. Not a good idea. It's very well engineered on these Vespas. It works very well. Pretty much you can go about 6,000 miles, 10,000 kilometers between checking or cleaning or replacing the air filter. Typically, if you're doing this at home, I just recommend replacing the air filter. You end up having more costs associated with cleaning it, all the materials to clean it, and it's a very inexpensive part to change. So first of all, you need to gain access to the majority of this air box. It is possible to get this all out with this in place, just don't recommend it. So we're going to take this side skirt, as I like to call these, off. These are plastic pieces that kind of finish off the frame. And the Vespa GTS HPE happens to be the most difficult version of the side skirt. If you have a Vespa GT200, it's only 2 screws, the GTS 250s and 300s prior to 2020. It's there's a nut in the back and a screw up in the front, so much easier, but this skirt goes all the way to the license frame. So first of all, you got to remove your plate. However you have your plate fastened, then you're going to need to remove the support for the plate. So you have shallow access right here. I'm going to use this Easy Red kind of small ratchet with a number 2 Phillips. You can also use a very stubby Phillips screwdriver. That would do the same. And we're going to go ahead and remove this the license support right here. And typically is what I'll do with this is I'll remove one of the 2 fasteners from the bottom. So there's 2 fasteners on the bottom that are just screws. I'll show you what they look like. So pull that screw, it's got 2 washers, so make sure those stay in place. And the second one we're not going to remove, I'm just going to go ahead and loosen just enough so we could rotate the license frame out of the way. All right, and then you have an upper fastener. You can see a nut, and you put an 8mm socket on a small ratchet. There's a screw there as well, so I'll put my finger behind. Screw, don't need to put a driver on it, but go ahead and remove the nut. They want to have a small magnet handy because there's going to be some washers that may fall off. And you can see I could just rotate the whole assembly out of the way. You know, I don't need to necessarily remove it, and I have the two washers. And what does that gives me access to the single fastener behind here. So a T30 Torx driver. And I would just recommend loosening both. You may also want to remove the taillight. That even makes the job a little easier. If you look at some of my prior videos, I show how to completely detrim a Vespa GTS. And then you're going to kind of reach up. So right where the taillight is, about right here, reach up right here, and you're going to find a 10mm nut. And I just use a combination wrench. Get a couple turns on it, spin the nut off with your fingers, and move towards the front of the skirt, T25 Torx driver. And keep in mind, if you're going to take the left and the right side off, they are different style screws on each side. So at this point, we can pull this away. I'm going to pull the taillight off because it does make the job a little easier. So a single screw right below the taillight does have a washer. So keep that in mind, it's a little longer screw. And just pull the taillight away. There's a single connector back there. So, you know, it took me another 10 seconds to pull the taillight, makes the job a little easier. We'll be able to line up this rear seam all that much better. And then just go ahead, pull the side skirt away. And then once you have it pulled out, these 3 rubber pegs right here, kind of pull it towards the back of the scooter. And now you see most of the fasteners for your air filter box. And you'd be doing the same steps if you're doing a belt job. Typically at 6,000 miles, you'd be doing all this in conjunction with the full 6K service. And I have a past video that covers all the steps to doing the full 6K, 6,000 mile service. So you have several screws. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. And then you move your hands up here and you're going to feel 2 thumb screws. So one about right here and one right here. And I'm not going to pull the bucket out. You can see my prior video of the Primavera. I go in detail on accessing the thumb screws that are found on the Vespa airboxes. So we'll start with getting the more difficult thumb screws off. And this is where a very shallow ratchet with a insert bit, number 2 Phillips insert bit, comes in handy. Very handy tool to have. If you watch a lot of my prior videos, I don't even talk about this tool, I just use it because I found it works pretty good. So I'm kind of reaching my way around. You see the screws right there. Now I have my hand up there and pretty much just ratchet the screw right off. So I'll show you what you have. Much easier than trying to struggle with the, you know, trying to turn this by hand. So you have a thumb screw, looks like that. Move on to the second one, which is right about here, towards the front. If you don't have this little ratchet, you could certainly access them if you pull the underseat bucket out. You can just put like a little pliers, you know, on them and slowly turn them. You know, that's one way to skin the cat, get these screws out. So they're both identical, no big deal there. And you notice this little bubble right here. Oftentimes you might find it's missing or it's completely full of oil. Fortunately, I'm not doing this on a very good example. I'm doing it on a new scooter, but the way the engine emissions control system works is the vapors from the engine, you know, the blow-by vapors from the combustion byproducts, they end up into the airbox and they're burned back with the engine. So that's the most environmentally conscious way to reabsorb those vapors. The unfortunate side effect is you have some oil collection that happens, and it builds up in the airbox. So that bubble, you could pull this little clamp off and drain the bubble if it does have oil. And on the earlier models, they have a bubble up front. Look in the description for the part number for both the bubble and the original clamp. It's something we sell. Sometimes they're pretty easy to knock off. Got my Phillips screwdriver right here. This is the frontmost screw for the airbox. All these screws are going to be the same. The only different ones are those thumb screws. It's a coarse self-tapping thread. It's a special type of screw that's specifically for these plastic airboxes. So you really don't want to use anything else unless the bosses that they thread in are completely stripped out. And if that was the case, I would go to like a number 10 sheet metal screw, and that would be the next larger size, and it will tap into the plastic if you had a problem with that. So kind of just working my way around. And the last one is this one located right in the center here. So that's usually the one I leave for last. You can see the airbox is already kind of pulling away from the body, or the airbox cover is pulling away from the airbox body. So I have all 6 of those screws out, and now I'm ready to pull the airbox off. And don't be alarmed if oil drips out of here. I would suggest getting a rag and wiping this all out. And here's the inside of your airbox. Unlike the Primaveras and Sprints, they do breathe the air from right above the airbox. And just as a hint, you don't want to take a scooter like this through, you don't want to ford like a foot of water. I can tell you the Primavera or Sprint, I think they were designed for like Far East Asia, where people go through really thick water. I think you can go through probably about 2 feet of water, you know, similar to like what a SUV could go through. But these ones breathe from right here, so keep that in mind, just a little tip. So that's the snorkel where it draws the air right here, and then you pull the air filter right out. And of course, I'm taking this out of a new bike. You'd probably see debris, you may see some dirt buildup. You can certainly take the original foam element and clean it, but if it's old, I just recommend replacing it regardless, because they do deteriorate. And the problem is when they deteriorate, they get sucked into the engine. You can see all this plumbing that's kind of muffles the intake sound under here, and chunks of the air filter will go into the throttle body and cause some problems. I mean, it will get burned up, but it's probably not too good for the motor. And one other thing I wanted to show you, say you have an airbox that's dripping oil all over your belt cover. If that's the case, this foam gasket, it's kind of a closed cell foam gasket, it's located in the cover. On the smaller scooters, it's actually located on the airbox, and it will pull right out, and you can replace this gasket, because it eventually will deteriorate and you'll have some oil drippage onto your belt cover. Very inexpensive gasket. So for instance, you have a GTS 250 that's over 10, 15 years old, and it's kind of making a mess all over the belt cover. Just go ahead and order the gasket from scooterwest.com. You could search our website, scooterwest.com, for the airbox gasket, or just look in the description of this video on how the part number to this gasket. So you got your brand new air filter. It's all sealed up in a bag. And I'll kind of show you the tips to getting this in place. So it only goes in one direction, just like that. Put it into the cover, and you just kind of drop it right onto that and that little centering thing. And at that point, we could put it back on. All right, so the new foam element's all in place. Just kind of sneak the filter airbox right back up underneath there. And I'll hold it in place. And the first screw I'm going to put in was the last one I pulled out, which is this center screw right here. So I'm holding the airbox cover, got the screw on a magnetically or magnetized Phillips screwdriver, and from there we'll just kind of move around, put all the other screws. And I'll warn you, do not over tighten these screws, because you will strip the airbox. It's going into plastic threads, and pretty much the second you feel the screw get tight, just stop. That's all it needs. So you'll have resistance putting the screw in all the way. And the second the screw stops, that's all you need to go, and that's seating the airbox. And it's pretty important you get them all about the same tightness, because that's what keeps it sealed up. Don't really recommend using a power tool. I mean, if you have a special clutch on a auto screwdriver, it is possible to do that, but you know, you got to really know your tools if you're gonna use a power screwdriver to put these in. So got all the screws back in. And now we have the thumb screws, and you pretty much just feel your way around until you get it started. And make sure when you start it, you're not cross-threading it, because it is possible to cross-thread plastic and you'll get past the resistance because it cuts new threads, but it's obviously you're gonna wear out the threads on the airbox. So got them both started, a couple turns with the thumb screws. Of course, you could do it without that ratchet tool, but I like speeding things up, so I'm gonna get the ratchet on there. So now that they're started, much faster than trying to turn it by hand. And again, just like the screwdriver, right when you feel resistance, stop. And that's pretty much replacing an air filter on a GTS, GT200. They're all pretty much the same. Same with MP3 250. Pretty much the same airbox design on those 2006 through 2010 MP3 250s that were sold in the United States. We'll put the skirt on. Recommend clean your hands. I don't really do that, but we'll engage this skirt into the front. Make sure the seam looks perfect, and then we'll just go ahead and push these pegs, these plastic pegs, into the rubber fasteners and get this threaded boss right in here. So now it looks all perfect. Looks good. I'm going to move towards the back, make sure this is all lined up the best I can get it. And I would start by putting the two screws in the back. So kind of hold some, you know, kind of tighten up the seam on the back of the scooter. And as you're tightening the screws, you'll get a little bit better fit. And if you're wondering about the taillight, got this grommet with the electrical connector. The wonderful looking LED taillight on these newer scooters. It's got the sealed 3-pin connector. The little tab goes towards the bottom. And on the top, it's just got these gripper clips. Pretty much line that right up to the top. You can kind of see where it originally lined up, and just give it a little, that's all it takes. And we'll put the screw on the bottom. Again, take care not to over tighten these screws. They are holding plastic. While we're still working back here, spin my license plate around. We'll put the plate back on. Pretty much all the reverse steps of what I started with. And then we'll take this single nut about right here. Feel your way where the threaded studs on that back part. Get your combo wrench on there and just give it a little. All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from my videos. The easy way to change out the air filter on your Vespa GTS scooter. Factory interval for checking that filter, cleaning it and replacing it is every 6,000 miles, every 10,000 miles. And typically our rule of thumb in our service department is just replace it every 12,000 miles. Of course, the easy way to go about it is just replace it every time. Completely depends on how you use the scooter. If you're always riding on, like, I don't know, with damp conditions on clean roads, the filter's gonna last a long time. If you go down a dirt road, that filter might be trashed in less than 100 miles. So keep that in mind. Completely depends on how you ride your scooter, is how long that filter's gonna do its job and keep filtered air going through your engine. Pretty vital part of the scooter, such, you know, in addition to doing other important tasks such as keeping up your tires, brakes, oil changes, the drive belt, and more. I've also covered this exact same job in the full comprehensive 6,000 mile service for the Vespa GTS 300, along with many prior videos that I've covered on the earlier model GTS scooters. So just go on to YouTube, search for many of the other Vespa videos I have up on YouTube. You know, And if you're looking for any of the parts needed to do these jobs, of course, our web shop, scooterwest.com. We have you covered. We got the parts in stock and we're ready to ship them to you. So thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting this channel. Purchase products at scooterwest.com. If you're in San Diego, stop by our dealership in Vespa Motorsport. San Diego, we've been doing this for so many years now. All love Vespas. That's all I stick to is the Vespas. I'll work on your Honda too. Until next time, Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and scooterwest.com.